Well, first of all, thank you, Rupali, for this wonderful introduction. I normally forget, and it's always lovely to hear about you yourself sometimes. And also, it's a great pleasure to be here with you all. I have always known that BIMTech is a very influential, I would say, organization in a manner that wherever I ask people about BIMTech, they all know BIMTech. I don't have to explain it's a Birla Institute for Management, Technology, and so on. So that clearly speaks a lot about what the institute is all about. I also understand that management is a subject in which agriculture gets perhaps the least priority. Wherever I travel in the country, especially in the management institutes, I must say it is not very encouraging to see the kind of response that I would be visualizing. But it's always a pleasure to interact and get a kind of a feedback which I think is important for us to understand as to where the policymakers, future policymakers and influential citizens are going to look at it. And therefore, it's very important to really bring our perspective also before you. And I think you are the future, you are the voice of the country in many ways wherever you work. And that's going to influence the policy decisions of this country also. Now, having said that, ladies and gentlemen, you are all aware, just 2 days back, Oxfam released a report at the World Economic Forum. The report, as you all know, is very clear that 8 people's economic wealth is equal to the economic wealth of 3.6 billion people. In India, 57 people, the wealth of 57 people equals to the wealth of 87.5 crore people. 87.5 crore, and on the other hand, we have just 57 families. That's one scenario, which I think I don't have to tell you all. It tells you a lot about where the economic policies have gone to. On the other hand, you also perhaps have seen at the beginning of this year a report which said that 3.18 lakh farmers have committed suicide in the last 21 years. Every 41 minutes, one farmer is committing suicide somewhere in this country. There's something terribly going wrong. That means there's a great mismatch that we see. On the one hand, we have a handful of people becoming stinkingly rich over the years, and on the other hand, we have the other part of the world which is becoming stinkingly poor, I would say, over the years. There's something terribly going wrong. And I think one of the best ways to analyze it, to look at what the situation of agriculture in this country is. Now, as you all know, agriculture occupies, or let's say agriculture share in this country's economy or in this country's demography, 60 crore farmers. 60 crore farmers, which means roughly about 52% or 51% of the population of this country is comprising of farmers. And as I said earlier, 3.18 lakh farmers, not 1 or 2, but 3.18 lakh farmers have committed suicide in 21 years. It signifies, or it reflects a lot about the state of agriculture of India. And many of you, I'm sure, come from this kind of a background, a middle class background, and many of you perhaps maybe directly, indirectly also related to the farming situation of this country and would appreciate this. Why is it that so many farmers are committing suicide? Why is it in a country like India, which provides, farmers of India are providing food for the country? In fact, we have surplus that we can export. And yet farmers, the people who provide food for this country are the ones who go to bed, primarily are the ones who go to bed hungry every night. There's something fundamentally going wrong. The people who provide food, the annadatta that we call, if he has to, or 58% of the farmers have to go to bed hungry, I think there is something terribly going wrong all these years. But let's broadly look at it. In my understanding, what I have been trying to analyze and say is that it is not that the farmer of India is inefficient, usko kheti karni nahi aati hai. It is because the entire design is such that the farmer has to be penalized for growing food. And that's the reason why he is dying. It's not because he doesn't know how to farm or he is not an effective farmer. Now, that is something which I thought I'd like to share with you, what exactly is going wrong and where it is going wrong. Let me start with giving you two examples or two illustrations to derive home my argument. You know, in 1996, and I still recall, this is about 25 years back. 25 years back, we had a conference at the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation in Chennai. And the then Vice President of the World Bank, who looks after sustainable development, what is called World Bank Vice President for Sustainable Development, Ismail Sarageldin, he made a statement there at that conference that in the next 20 years, which means 2015, next 20 years, the World Bank estimates the number of people who will be migrating from the rural to the urban areas in India will be equal to twice the combined population of UK, France and Germany. The combined population of UK, France and Germany is 200 million then and even now. So the World Bank had estimated that 400 million people would be migrating from the rural to the urban areas in India by the year 2015. Now, for a number of years, I thought this was a warning to us. They were trying to tell us that, you know, be careful, this is the kind of demographic shift that's going to take place. But eventually I realized, no, it was not a warning to us, it was a directive to us. That by the year 2015, you should be moving this kind of population into the urban areas. In 2008, I read the World Development Report. You know, the World Bank comes out with World Development Report every year. The report says, in as many words as possible, that you were given a task which you have not done. You were asked to move these people out, you have not done, now hasten the process. So how do you hasten the process? The World Bank suggested go in for land rentals, go in for land acquisitions. Secondly, they said that, you know, go in for skill development. Skill development is a word which, of course, is now the talk of the society. Actually, came from that part of the argument that we have to push these people. Why skill development? It said that, you know, the younger people in agriculture are the ones who don't know anything except to farm. They can only run the plow or, you know, operate the plow. So they have to be taught, if they have to be moved out into the cities, how to become industrial workers. For that, the World Bank suggested that you must set up a network of training institutes, industrial training institutes, so as to train them in or develop their skills. And no wonder the next year's budget, 2009, Mr. P. Chidambaram, who was then the finance minister, actually made a provision for setting up 1,000 ITIs. World Bank ने कहा, आपने किया. And some years before this 1996 incident that I am sharing with you, I recall Norman Borlaug, and I'm sure all of you know that he is the only agriculture scientist to have been given a Nobel Prize, Nobel Peace Prize. I, at that time, used to be the agriculture correspondent of Indian Express. And so whenever he would travel into India, I would get an opportunity to spend a lot of time with him. And I recall in one of our meetings, one of our travels, he shared me something which I thought was, which now I understand also, is what actually derives or the design that I talked about. He said that there was a time, I'm not sure many of you were born then, Lech Walesa was leading the workers' solidarity movement in Poland. And the workers' solidarity movement was a big issue. I remember as a small kid, you know, and I didn't, of course, understand at that particular time, but I knew there was a movement going on in Poland. The Nobel Prize Committee decided to find out whether Lech Walesa deserves a Nobel Prize or not. So they set up a small team under Norman Borlaug to go and find out, you know, give a ground report. Borlaug came back and gave a report which said Walesa does not deserve a Nobel Prize. And incidentally, Walesa got the Nobel Prize. So I asked him, and of course that became international controversy then, I asked him that why did you say that he doesn't deserve a Nobel Prize? His answer was that when I went there, I found that Walesa was talking about actually the entire solidarity movement was actually cheaper food for the workers. He wanted cheaper food for the workers. But in the bargain, what he was forgetting was the people who grow food, that cheaper food, what will happen to them? What will happen to the livelihoods of millions of farmers who are going to produce that cheaper food? And that is why he said that, you know, it's like pitting one class against the other. And his recommendation was that Walesa does not deserve a Nobel Prize. And of course, as I said earlier, you know, he got the Nobel Prize. Now, if you look at today, the situation today, every time the finance minister or the prime minister is very concerned about keeping food inflation low. The entire idea is that you and me should get cheaper food. But we are again not realizing what will happen to those people who are growing that food. The cheaper food that comes to us on our table, what is going to happen and how will they survive, those who produce cheap food for us? And we as a society, let's be accepted, let's be honest about it, we haven't really paid our gratitude to those people who produce food for us. We are in fact very exploitative. I find when I tweet about 2 farmers dying in Punjab, the backlash I get on my Twitter is, why are you standing for them? They should in fact be dying. They are ineffective producers. This is what is the kind of social response to a tragedy, which I thought should have woken up everybody, but that's the reality. Anyway, now these 2 scenarios I think should place the entire debacle that agriculture faces, or the crisis agriculture faces, I think on a clear foundation. Now we have reached a state in this country where we have, at one stage we had 1/4 of the world's farming population with us, but I think now with China, number of farmers receding drastically in China, I think we may be perhaps 1/3 of the world's farming community. As I said earlier, 60 crore farmers in our country. And even if we were to move what the World Bank had told us, it would mean we have to move 40 crore people. Can we even visualize what does 40 crore mean? Moving these people out into the urban areas and then thinking it's economic growth, that's one thing which I think we all need to also understand, is also the reason for the kind of inequality the world is witnessing. So in that situation, where is Indian agriculture placed? That's take one. Now let's move on to the other areas. Indian farmers, by and large, if you look at it, the land holding, of course, we all know, is very small. And we believe that this land holding cannot sustain a farmer. We have heard that again and again. 1.3 hectares is the average land holding size, which means roughly about 3 acres is the average land holding size in India. Some years back, when the WTO came into effect in the year 1995, I recall at that time I was asked to write a column for the British journal, The Ecologist. And at that time, they wanted to know how the Indian farmer is going to fare, what the future entails for him with the global process as far as international trade is concerned, removing all the bottlenecks, as a result of which we have always been told that, farmers would be able to export, and, the airplane loads of produce will go from India and dollars will come back into India. All these things were thrown up at that time. And so it looked as if it's going to be a bonanza for the Indian farmers. So at that time I was asked to compare the Indian farmers vis-a-vis the American farmers or the European farmers. At that time when I was trying to compare them, I realized it's no use comparing the Indian farmer with an American farmer. In fact, in that article of mine, I compared the Indian farmer with a cow in Europe. I did not visualize that this article would hit the sensibilities of economists all over the world, but then of course it became one way to assess what is aid versus trade was whether it was a Human Development Report, whether it was a World Development Report. They all started looking at the subsidies given to a cow vis-a-vis what happens to a farmer in a developing world. Let me share with you why I said so. My argument is, if you have been to the Western countries, if you see the cows being reared in those, of course, that cows in that part of the world are milked by machines. That's okay. But when you go to a dairy farm there are 2 things very noticeable now. One is that, of course, each cow is being milked by machines. That's okay. But each cow, when it is being milked, goes for feed, as you all know. And when it goes for feed, if you have gone to a village in India, you would see that, it has a habit of putting its head in the feed bin. Now, what they did was they have carved out a hole in the wall while it is being milked by machines. And now there is on the strap on the neck, there is a computer chip. The technology, of course, has allowed us that. So when it puts the head in the bin, the wall carries also a chip. So the chip on the cow's strap matches with the strip on the hole, a wall, and it tells exactly what is the body weight of the animal, what food it needs, what protein it needs, and only that quantity of food comes out. Which means cow is the most food secure animal on the planet. It's being fed even to the minimum calories and grams and so on and so forth. And as you all know, about 245 million people go to bed hungry just in India. So this picture, I think, should tell you exactly how those people are rearing their cows and how we are taking care of our own farmers. If you look at the kind of feed that goes to feed a cow in the Western world, and I'm sure you have seen those fat cows, in America and Europe. The average land holding that you require to produce that food to feed that cow, or the feed to produce that feed, is about 8 to 10 hectares for one cow. Which means in 8 to 10 hectares in India, I am sure at least 15 families would survive, if not less. In the area in which they rear just one cow, 15 families survive. And then if you look at the subsidies, the cows in Europe get phenomenal subsidies. When I say phenomenal, to put it mildly, each cow, the kind of subsidies it gets, each cow can travel business class around the world. That's the kind of subsidies the cows get there. Now, what it does in the process is it lowers the international prices. It lowers the international prices, as a result of which farmers in much of the majority world are lost out. They become ineffective producers. Whereas it's just because of subsidies that those cows that I talked about are producing that kind of a milk. Now, when I say that the kind of subsidies that go, my estimate at that time was, and which was accepted, was that each cow daily gets a subsidy of 2.7 euros. Per day. In India, that would roughly mean about 150 to 170 rupees then. And in India, the average income of a farmer was about 40 rupees a day. So that tells you the comparison between a cow and between an Indian farmer. Now, let's not only compare with cow, let's look at the farmers also in that part of the world. In America, there's just 2% population is in agriculture left now. In America, the kind of subsidies they provide to agriculture, I'd like to illustrate with one or two examples. Cotton is one important crop of India. Cotton is also an important crop of America. The difference is that we have the largest area in the world under cotton, whereas America has the highest productivity as far as cotton is concerned. So the argument in India I have seen again and again, जब तक किसान productivity नहीं बढ़ाएगा, उसकी आत्महत्या होती रहेगी. I'm sure we have all been brainwashed to believe this is the way forward. And if you are also, one of them, I think it is time to really take another look. Why I'm saying this is, look at America. America has 20,000 cotton growers. Just 20,000 cotton growers. In 2005, I did a report for the World Trade Organization in which I analyzed that in 2005, I'm mentioning, in 2005, the total output of cotton in terms of value was $3.9 billion in America. The American farmers was very effective, was very high productive, also. So there is no reason why he should be getting a subsidy. But the American cotton growers, 20,000 of them only, were getting a subsidy of $4.7 billion to produce a crop of $3.9 billion. That would mean that the international prices dip by about 40%, as a result of which the farmer in Vidarbha or the farmer in India or in Western Africa is priced out. It looks that our farmer is inefficient farmer. It's very, very interesting to realize, and the world has been talking about the American subsidies, under WTO we need to reduce those subsidies and so on. But interestingly, it was Brazil which took America to the dispute panel. There is a dispute panel in WTO, with kind of a court. America first went on doing exactly what Salman Khan did all these years, tariq pe tariq, tariq pe tariq, tariq pe tariq. But eventually, the court gave a verdict, and the verdict was that the Brazilians won the case, and there was countervailing duties applied for America. Now, as you know, it says a legal teeth is there in WTO. So the countervailing duties were so much that America didn't want to take a chance. What America did was remarkable, that the only case of a nation bribing another nation is what at least I have found. If you have found another, please do let me know. America started providing अपना business चलता रहा. And then what happens is, the farmers in Western Africa, the farmers in India keep on dying. Nobody cares about them, of course. And those farmers were given massive subsidies. If you were to divide $4.7 billion into 20,000 farmers, you'll get to know what daily the subsidies they used to get. So no wonder the farmers of America are in queue to go to Mars. And Indian farmers are in queue, you know where. Now, this is the kind of an international paradox. The other part is that we have been told, every time I go to a conference and I hear those international experts, plus even the Indian experts, they always tell us that in a globalized world, you have to be competitive. This word I'm sure you are hearing every other day. You know, we have to be globally competitive. You know, and what is globally competitive means, you know, take the case of rice. Indian farmer, again, India has the largest area under rice in the world, but our productivity is amongst the lowest in the world. So the argument is कि जब तक इंडिया की productivity किसान नहीं बढ़ाएंगे तो आत्महत्याएं होती रहेंगी. Let's look at America. In the case of rice, the average productivity we have in India is about 3 tons per hectare. The average productivity America has is 7 tons per hectare. So the argument is that you Indian farmers must match that 7 tons per hectare yield, and that will make him economically viable. And that is the drawback that we face today, that the farmers, as I said, are the ones who are not able to have money in their hands. So the best way is to raise their productivity. But let's look at it, is this real? In America, the total output of rice is $1.2 billion. With 7 tons productivity, I'm sure you will agree, there's no need to support those farmers. They should be competitive, quote unquote. Am I right? But in fact, America provides a subsidy of $1.4 billion to produce a crop of $1.2 billion. Now, the argument still is, people keep on saying that, farmers need to raise productivity. My question has been, if Indian farmers, he can also raise productivity. He can raise the productivity from 3 tons to 8 tons or 7 tons. But who will provide him the corresponding subsidies to survive? That's the question nobody wants to answer. Most of the Indian mainline economists are in tune with what is happening in America. Then I think they don't even know what is happening in India. I always used to say, if you remember, when Obama came the first time during Manmohan Singh's time to India, and I remember speaking at the IIMA about this, and my argument was, Obama came and lobbied for FDI in retail and other things also, because Obama knew what was good for his country. And incidentally, Manmohan Singh also knew what was good for America. That's the tragedy. Most of our leaders are actually well aware of what is good for those countries, but not aware of what is good for our country. And we don't even have the courage to say that this is good for our country. And this holds true for the mainland economist also. I've never seen a mainland economist in India talking about protecting our farmers, whereas they say, oh, America की तो मजबूरी है, political compulsion है. America का protect करना अपने farmers को is a मजबूरी, political compulsion which they accept. But India में to sacrifice our farmers is what they want. They say नहीं, अपने farmers को protect करने की जरूरत नहीं, इनको globally competitive बनाइए. So these are the gaps that I think you need to understand as young students, because if you ask the right questions, you will get the right answers. And I think this is something which is very important when you are being told this is the way forward. Now let's look at it. विदर्भा में किसान आत्महत्या कर रहे हैं. You are all aware of it if you read the newspapers. Punjab में the impression is Punjab farmers are very progressive, have all technologies that you talk about with them, and there is no reason, and they are doing very well. But you'll be surprised, Punjab farmers. Punjab has now become the second most important hotspot as far as farmer suicides are concerned. The argument that I hear often is again the same. कि देखिए प्रोडक्टिविटी जब तक नहीं बढ़ेगी, दो चीज़ें बढ़ी जाती हैं, उसके अलावा तीसरा हमें आता ही नहीं है, क्योंकि पढ़ाया नहीं गया आपके कोर्स में. वो ये होता है कि एक इरिगेशन बढ़ेगी. वन आर्गुमेंट दैट वी हियर इज इरिगेशन एक्सपैंड होगी. हमारे देश में वी आर डिपेंडेंट ऑन मानसून, एंड श्योर मैनी ऑफ द टेलीविजन चैनल्स टेल यू अबाउट दिस कि इंडिया मानसून डिपेंडेंट तक कब मानसून से बाहर निकलेगा, ये आपने सुना है. द आर्गुमेंट इज कि हमारे को एक्सपेंशन करना है एरिया को, विच आई एग्री, नोबडी इज सेइंग कि ना करिए, बट लेट्स लुक एट रियलिटी. डज इट मैटर? Secondly, कि productivity is very low. let's look again, I will come back to the productivity argument again. In Punjab, and I remember one day I was on a show with Miss Munde, am I right, the minister for in Maharashtra, and she had come back from, yes, she had come back from Israel. So she was telling on the show कि मैं Israel से drip irrigation देख के आई हूँ, and we will expand, bring the area under drip irrigation. It's always fascinating. Whenever our ministers, chief ministers, prime minister go to Israel, everybody comes back with this thing कि हम drip irrigation लेके आ रहे हैं. हमारे देश में जो है किसी को पता ही नहीं है कि हमारे देश में क्या है. If you look at Rajasthan's way it conserved water, if you read Anupam Mishra's book आज भी खरे हैं तालाब, अगर नहीं पढ़ा तो जरूर पढ़िए. आज भी खरे हैं तालाब by the great Gandhian who died recently, Anupam Mishra. He tells you that वहाँ क्या जो पानी का, the way they were managing water. In fact, if you have read Maharana Pratap, you have watched those shows also on TV. महाराणा प्रताप के जो किले की जो पाबंद वो हुई थी घेराबंदी, वो 10 साल चली थी. People died of hunger but not of water. Now that's the kind of strength that this country had. But we always depend upon drip irrigation in Israel, not with our own kind of systems that exist in this country. Somehow there's a mismatch that is happening, and we'll come to it why it is happening also, why this mismatch exists. But nevertheless, मुंडे जी ने कहा कि साहब ये मैं इरिगेशन आ जाएगी तो मेरा प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व हो जाएगा, क्योंकि विदर्भा में महाराष्ट्र में 18% इरिगेशन हो. सो इट मेक्स सेंस, सब समझते हैं कि हाँ इरिगेशन आएगी तो शायद ये ठीक हो जाएगा. मैंने कहा उस पर, मैम पंजाब में 98% एश्योर्ड इरिगेशन है, अमेरिका में 11.4% एश्योर्ड इरिगेशन है. 98% एश्योर्ड इरिगेशन इन पंजाब. The productivity of wheat in Punjab is 45 quintals per hectare, which is more than the productivity in America. The productivity of paddy in Punjab is 60 quintals per hectare, which is matching the productivity, the highest productivity, which is in China, 67 quintals per hectare. 45 quintal, 60 quintal, I'm sure you'll agree, it's on the top of the world. And then 98% assured irrigation. Every day, 3, 4, 5 farmers are dying. That means both these things have no correlation with the kind of agrarian crisis that exists. We need to understand that. हमें बताया जाता है ये माइंड में, जैसे आप लोगों का प्रोग्रामिंग हुआ, ऐसे प्रोग्रामिंग होता है कि साहब ये 2 तरीके करोगे तो ये होगा. क्यों? Because this is where the companies can invest. This is where they will invest, irrigation में भी, and they will also invest in technology, inputs technology जो providers हैं. They will, उनका stock तो बढ़ेगा. I have never seen any company collapsing and yet the chairman dying, whereas I find the farmers dying even with a high productivity level. There is something fundamentally going wrong, and that I think is what I'm trying to derive at कि वो ऐसा क्यों हो रहा है कि हमारे किसान जो हैं वो they are forced to commit suicide. अभी पिछले साल बजट में अभी भी बोला जाएगा जब 1 फरवरी को आएगा कि गवर्नमेंट की इंटेंशन है कि किसान की इनकम डबल की जाए अगले 5 साल में. ये आपने सुना ही है, डबलिंग द फार्मर्स इनकम. And then we come out with fantastic ideas of neem coated urea. I don't know how will it double the income. पर क्योंकि कहा है प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने तो सबको बाजा बजाना है, सब बजा रहे हैं, you know, and we don't even know. Now it is 100% neem coated urea. Farmers have not stopped committing suicide. The point I'm trying to make is शायद उनको तो नहीं पता होगा, लेकिन जो एडवाइजर्स हमारे उनको ब्रीफ करते हैं कि सब ये आने से हमारा ठीक हो जाएगा. क्राइसिस कहाँ है? अगर 98% एश्योर्ड इरिगेशन के बाद भी किसान आत्महत्या कर रहा है तो देयर इज समथिंग फंडामेंटली गोइंग रॉन्ग. नो व्हाट इज दैट? मैंने एक एनालिसिस किया. देयर आर लॉट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस बीइंग आस्क्ड टू मी ऑफ एंड ऑन कि जब आपको याद होगा 1 साल पहले यूपी में, सिंस नाउ यू आर इन यूपी, लॉट ऑफ फार्मर्स कमिटेड सुसाइड आफ्टर द सडन हेल स्टॉर्म एंड सो ऑन, फ्रीक जो हेल स्टॉर्म वेदर हुआ था. तो द क्वेश्चन आस्क्ड टू मी वाज कि भाई किसान क्यों मर रहे हैं? अगेन द सेम आर्गुमेंट कि साहब इनके पास प्रोडक्टिविटी कम है एंड सो ऑन. दिस इज व्हाट आई यूज्ड टू सी ऑन द टेलीविजन. I looked into a report of the Commission for Agriculture Cost and Prices which determines the minimum support price. And I found कि यूपी के उसमें अगर आप देखें ध्यान से, उसमें हर एक स्टेट का मिनिमम इनकम लेवल दिया हुआ और एवरेज इनकम लेवल दिया हुआ, रिटर्न्स दिए हुए हैं. उसमें ये देखा गया कि वीट का जो फार्मर है, wheat farmers, the net return from cultivating wheat per hectare is 11,000 rupees. Now wheat is sown in October and harvested in April, which means it's a 6 months crop. 6 महीने के किसान मेहनत करने के बाद उसको 11,000 रुपए मिलते हैं नेट रिटर्न. दिस इज ऑफिशियल रिकॉर्ड. तो महीने में कितने हो गए? लेस देन 2,000. लेस देन 2000। अब बताइए मुझे कि जिस आदमी को 2000 रुपए अपने खेत से मिलने हैं, अगर मौसम ने उसके क्रॉप को फ्लैट कर दिया तो उसको आत्महत्या करने के अलावा झटका लगेगा नहीं लगेगा? हाँ जी, नो, दैट वी आर नॉट डिस्कसिंग दैट बिकॉज वी वांट फार्मर्स टू बी कॉम्पिटिटिव। चलिए उसको वो भी कर लेंगे। लेकिन ये आर्गुमेंट जब आया बहुत ज़्यादा, तो मुझे एक बड़ा उस पर I had to work on it to say कि भाई जो मैं हर जगह बोलता हूँ कि भाई farmers have been deliberately kept impoverished, and I think it will be important for you now to appreciate why it is happening. 1970 में जब ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन की शुरुआत हुई थी उसी उन एक दो साल में, 1970 में आप जानते हैं कि किसान की, is it okay when I go switch into Hindi or is you want me to go in English? Is it okay? जब किसान उस समय जब 1970 में the procurement price, as you know, is one price under which farmers realizes that's the way he gets his income. He produces whatever, he works hard and so on, and then he takes it into mandi, and then what he gets is procurement price. Let's take procurement price as a yardstick. Procurement price का ही फिर net return उसका निकलेगा, am I right? The procurement price of wheat in the year 1970 was 76 rupees per quintal. At that time, the monthly income of a school teacher was 90 rupees. When the procurement price of wheat was 76 rupees. And I recall in 1971 the salaries of teachers was raised to 100 rupees, from 90 to 100 rupees, and there was celebration all around. 10 rupees ka. In 1970, 76 rupees per quintal. In 2015, it becomes 1450 rupees per quintal. This is in a gap of 45 years. After 45 years, the procurement price of wheat becomes 19 times higher, goes 19 times higher to 1450 rupees. 19 गुना बढ़ा, 1450 से अगर 10 रुपए भी बढ़ते हैं तो सब हंगामा होता है मीडिया में, इन्फ्लेशन हो जाएगा, आपने सुना। I try to look into what other sections were getting. The government employees, and I'm counting only the basic pay plus the DA, I'm not looking at allowances. Basic pay and DA in 1970 and in 45 years later in 2015, the jump was 120 to 150 times. 120 to 150 times was the jump in their basic salary plus DA. I looked at college professors, and this should in fact be attractive for many of the professors sitting here, lecturers. The jump they got was 150 to 170 times. The school teachers first, the jump they got was, since their salaries were very low at that time, 280 to 320 times. And corporate employees, for the general manager category, 150 to niche wala, 300 times average was the jump in the salaries for the middle run corporate employees. The top run, 1000 times. Now look at it. You have jumps of 120, 150 in these 45 years, and for the farmers, it was just 19 times. Now how do you want that farmer to survive? अगर आपकी भी सैलरी, आप मीन्स दोज हु आर गेटिंग सैलरी, अगर आपकी भी सैलरी 19 गुना होती तो आई एम श्योर दिस कंट्री वुड हैव बीन हॉटस्पॉट फॉर सुसाइड्स टोटल. पर यू हैव डेलिबरेटली केप्ट वन सेक्शन ऑफ द सोसाइटी इम्पावरिश्ड. उसका हक क्या बनता है? अगर आप उसको 100 गुना भी बढ़ाते हैं, let's say 100 times, minimum that I saw was 120 times, but I say 100 times, let's take it for understanding. Then his actual price for wheat should have been 7,600 rupees per quintal. This is what he has been deprived all these years. And remember what I told you about Walesa. This is what they were doing in Poland at that time, and this is what is happening in India at that time. The wheat price I talked about, the paddy price in 1970 was 51 rupees per quintal. And in 2016, it becomes 1450. It's now 1450. Today, actually, the paddy price should be 5,100 rupees per quintal. The moment I talk about there is a halla gulla, oh my God, you know what will happen to the country's food inflation? I understand that. But this is what you have denied. You have denied these farmers. This is what their due was. And what have we done as a society? They provide us cheaper food. We have done nothing. In fact, we don't want to do anything for them. We want to leave them at the mercy of the rain gods. And नितिन गडकरी ने कहा था कि किसान को तो ना तो भगवान की तरफ देखना चाहिए ना मौसम की तरफ देखना चाहिए, किसकी तरफ देखे? हाँ जी, तो दिस इज व्हाट दे हैव बीन सेइंग. बट शुगर इंडस्ट्री को सारी प्रोटेक्शन, व्हाई? बिकॉज नितिन गडकरी का भी इंटरेस्ट है उसमें. I am naming these people because I think it is important to understand, not that I am pointing at who's indulging in something. Please try to understand. It is important to see from that perspective. You know, so my argument is कि अगर किसान को हमने deprive किया हुआ है, there are 60 crore farmers as I said. Now when the government says कि हम 5 साल में double करेंगे, do they even know what is the average income of a farmer? The वित्त मंत्री went on record उस दिन बजट में, और उस दिन मुझे भी मालूम है कि when I was answering those questions on the television, जब मैंने कहा कि 2 दिन पहले इकोनॉमिक सर्वे, दिस इकोनॉमिक सर्वे विच इज प्रेजेंटेड 2 days बिफोर द बजट, इफ यू रीड दैट इकोनॉमिक सर्वे, पढ़ता ही कोई नहीं है इस देश में ना, वी ऑल नो दैट, बट नेवरदलेस उसमें लिखा हुआ है कि एवरेज इनकम ऑफ ए फार्मिंग फैमिली इन 17 स्टेट्स ऑफ इंडिया, average income of a farming family in 17 states of India, and this for the first time they included what he keeps at home to eat and what he sells, दोनों चीजें मिलाई उन्होंने, is ₹20,000 a year, which means the average income per month is about 1,600 rupees. Am I right? आप मुझे बताइए 1,600 रुपए जिसके परिवार की इनकम होगी वो क्या करेगा? My question to the government was, now next time when he goes to things कि उसकी क्रॉप फेल होगी, जो बची कुछ क्रॉप होगी भी, should he wait for 5 years or should he go for committing suicide? And government says कि 5 साल बाद, इतनी मेहरबानी क्यों कर रहे हैं भैया आप हमारे किसानों पे, कि 5 साल में आप उसकी इनकम डबल करोगे? 20,000 से अगर आपने 40,000 भी कर दी, वो तो वैसे ही इन्फ्लेशन से हो जाएगी. आई एम श्योर यू ऑल नो दैट. 5 साल में तो वैसे ही इन्फ्लेशन को अगर एडजस्ट करोगे तो 40,000 रुपये हो जाएगा. तो क्या आपने तीर मार लिया अगर आप ये करेंगे? But the point is, we have all been kept to understand, and I'm sure you as management students would also be grappling with that issue, कि भाई ये inputs, ये technology, ये supply, क्या कहते हैं उसको, supply chain management जो आ जाएगा, उससे आपका सारा किसानों का भला हो जाएगा. It's good, you must look into it. You must look into it, and I think it is very important. If you understand the other background, you will be perhaps be able to analyze better how to make that supply चेन मैनेजमेंट जो आप बात करते हैं वो कैसे इफेक्टिव हो, कैसे किसान को बेनिफिट करे जो करनी चाहिए. हमने ये सोचा कि भाई द गवर्नमेंट, आई बीन आस्क्ड दिस क्वेश्चन अगेन एंड अगेन कि व्हाट इज द आंसर फॉर द एग्रेरियन क्राइसिस. माय आंसर हैज बीन दैट एक्चुअली द क्राइसिस इज नॉट इन प्रोडक्शन, it is not linked to productivity, it's not linked to irrigation and so on that we talk about. Actually it is linked to farmers income. अब देखिए 7वां वेतन आयोग आया, कंट्री इज वेरी हैप्पी. द सेम इकोनॉमिस्ट, अगर आप 1 लाख करोड़ रुपए किसान को आज दे देंगे तो देयर इज अ हल्ला गुल्ला, ओ फिस्कल डेफिसिट बढ़ जाएगा. बट द सेम इकोनॉमिस्ट हु टॉक अबाउट फिस्कल डेफिसिट इवन एट अ ड्रॉप ऑफ ए हैट हैव जस्ट केप्ट क्वाइट अबाउट द फिस्कल डेफिसिट कमिंग और ग्रोइंग फ्रॉम द 7th पे कमीशन. 7th पे कमीशन में आई एम नॉट अगेंस्ट इट, प्लीज डोंट मिसअंडरस्टैंड, बट आई एम जस्ट ट्राइंग टू एक्सप्लेन. 7th पे कमीशन में द एंटायर जो पॉपुलेशन कंट्री की है उसमें से 1.6% पॉपुलेशन जो है वो सैलरीड है. दिस इंक्लूड्स द प्राइवेट सेक्टर ऑल्सो. सो लेट अस अज्यूम 1%, लेट्स अज्यूम ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा गवर्नमेंट के हैं. द वित्त मंत्री सेड कि हम जो बजट, इसमें 45 लाख सरकारी सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट एम्प्लॉयज़ हैं और 50 लाख जो पेंशनर्स हैं, उनका साल का जो एडिशनल बर्डन होगा वो 1,02,000 करोड़ रुपया होगा. गुड. बट इफ यू इंक्लूड द सैलरी स्ट्रक्चर जब बढ़ेगा स्टेट्स में, PSUs में, कॉलेजेस में एंड सो ऑन, द क्रेडिट स्विस बैंक टेल्स अस इट इज गोइंग टू बी 4.8 लाख करोड़ बर्डन एवरी ईयर. 4.8 लाख करोड़ का मैंने कहीं नहीं देखा डिबेट में कहीं हो कि किसने कहा हो कि फिस्कल डेफिसिट कंट्री का बढ़ जाएगा. नोबडी हैज टॉक्ड अबाउट इट. आप किसान को दे दीजिए 50 रुपए आज गेहूं के, देखना हल्ला गुल्ला मच जाएगा सारे देश में, ये क्या कर दिया, फिस्कल डेफिसिट बढ़ जाएगा. या फूड सिक्योरिटी एक्ट पे दे दीजिए, तब भी वो इस पे क्राइसिस हो जाएगा देश में. व्हाई आई एम सेइंग इज बिकॉज देयर इज अ वे वी लुक एट इट, देयर इज अ वे वी आर ट्राइंग टू लुक एट इट, बिकॉज वी थिंक that in our economic radar screens agriculture farmers do not figure out. So that is why we just think कि ये तो किसी टिम्बकटू में रहते हैं या किसी अफ्रीका में रहते हैं. My argument has been, if the farmers, if the 7th Pay Commission can benefit 1% population with this kind of a bonanza, and what is a kind of bonanza? 196 इनको अलाउंस मिलते थे. Now they have been reduced to 108. 108 अलाउंस जिसको मिलते हो, मुझे लगता है उसको तनख्वाह देने की क्या जरूरत है. आई डोंट अंडरस्टैंड. एंड 108 एवरीथिंग इज टेकन केयर ऑफ बाय द गवर्नमेंट, नथिंग रॉन्ग. बट आई वांट दिस, उस किसान को तो उसमें से देयर इज नथिंग दैट यू गिव टू फार्मर्स एक्सेप्ट फॉर 10% प्रॉफिट. आप उसको 4 उसको अलाउंस दे दीजिए. हाउसिंग अलाउंस, एजुकेशन अलाउंस, ट्रैवल अलाउंस एंड हेल्थ अलाउंस. 4 अलाउंस दे दीजिए. ही विल नॉट आस्क फॉर एनीथिंग. But no, everything must go to just 1% of the population, and everything is being built on with this kind of thing. कि जब तक, अब ये कहा जाता है कि सब कंपनियां कहती हैं, इंडिया इंक ने कहा है कि 7th Pay Commission will act as a booster for economic growth because you'll create demand. मेरा ये आर्गुमेंट रहता है कि आपको शायद ये एहसास ही नहीं है, the moment you give more money into the hands of farmers, look at the demand it will create and look at the entire economic growth. Am I right? Do you agree with me? Because after all, this is what is being taught to us कि डिमांड क्रिएट करनी है. Am I right? तो डिमांड तो वही क्रिएट करेगा जिसके पास हाथ में पैसा होगा. तो पैसा अगर किसान के पास भी होगा, 60 करोड़ पीपल, जस्ट इमेजिन दे हैव मनी इन देयर हैंड्स. आपके तो इंडस्ट्री उसको मैच नहीं कर पाएगी डिमांड को. Am I right? ये कहते हैं कि 7%, 7.6% हमारा जीडीपी है. मेरा कहना है कि आपका 25% हो जाएगा अगर आप किसानों को दे दीजिए. बट नो, बिकॉज वी आर ऑल अफ्रेड. हमें डर ये लगता है कि अगर ये किसानों को मिल गया तो मेरा हाथ कट जाएगा. लेट्स एक्सेप्ट इट. सबको डर यही है कि मेरी तनख्वाह कट जाएगी अगर हमने उनको दे दिया. इसलिए एवरीवन सेज कि फार्मर्स को, उनको बोलिए कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन कम करें. जिस आदमी की एवरेज इनकम 1700 रुपए पर मंथ है, उसकी क्या कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन कम कर लोगे आप मुझे बताइए. कभी किसी ने हमको बोला है जो सैलरीड एम्प्लॉइज हैं कि आप अपना कॉस्ट ऑफ लिविंग कम करिए? आई फाइंड जो बच्चे भी आते हैं, पहले तो स्कूटी पे आते हैं, दूसरे साल में देखता हूँ मोटरसाइकिल पे आते हैं, तीसरे साल नैनो पे आ जाते हैं, चौथे साल कार में आ जाते हैं. एम आई राइट और रॉन्ग? हाँ जी. आप अपना मोबाइल का बिल देख लीजिए. वो तो कहते हैं अभिषेक बच्चन की बात करते जाइए, करते जाइए, करते जाइए. आप भी करते जा रहे हैं. 20,000 रुपया तो अगर आप देख लें, आपका बिल सबका आप एवरेज निकाल लीजिए, आपका 40,000 तो साल का बिल ही होगा उसका मोबाइल का. एम आई राइट? बट द पॉइंट इज, डिमांड क्रिएट करनी है तो डिमांड तो उससे भी क्रिएट हो जाएगी जो गरीब आदमी है, अगर आप उसके हाथ में पैसा देंगे. दैट्स व्हाई द डिबेट ऑन लिविंग इनकम्स नाउ. बट आई एम सेइंग लिविंग इनकम यस इज इंपॉर्टेंट, बट एट द सेम टाइम दोज हु डिजर्व, जिनको आपने डिनाई किया है, वो भी एक बहुत बड़ा एक जो ग्रोथ का इकोनॉमिक मॉडल है वो तब हो सकता है. नाउ this question has been asked to me. I've been saying for a number of years that the only way to pull out agriculture from the kind of crisis that exists is to give them a assured income. अब तो मेरे से बहुत लोग सहमत हैं, लेकिन they have been asking me कि कैसे होगा. I have had discussions with 4 of our ex-prime ministers on this when they were the prime ministers, and everybody would ask me कि बहुत बड़ा नंबर है, ये कैसे होगा. I've always been saying that set up a farmers income commission on the lines of the pay commission and let them come out with an answer and explanation कैसे होगा. But nevertheless, जब ये बहुत हो गया तो मुझे लगा कि इसका जवाब भी शायद मुझे देना पड़ेगा. So I invited a team of 10 economists, civil society actors and so on who have been concerned about this. We had 1-2 rounds of our discussions, and you know what we figured out? कि हमारे किसानों का, जिसको हिंदी में कहते हैं, many of you understand हिंदी, हमारे किसानों को जो हर साल सरकारें चूना लगाती हैं, उसको चूना ही कहते हैं ना, चूना लगाती हैं, वो 12 लाख करोड़ रुपए. 12 लाख करोड़ रुपए is what is due to our farmers which we are not paying. If we were to go by the minimum income level, that's the living income that you prescribe for a lowest of the government employees, 18,000 रुपए, then आपने 12 लाख करोड़ रुपया उनका जो उनको नहीं दिया है. And I'm sure you will agree, अगर 12 लाख करोड़ रुपए उनको मिल जाता तो the country's face would have been different. In fact, the global inequality की जो बात करते हैं वो भी बदल गया होता सारा सिनारियो. Now the question that comes up is, पैसा कहाँ से आएगा? मेरा कहना है कि ये पैसा वहीं से आएगा जहां से 7वें पे कमीशन का आया. कभी किसने पूछा कि 7वें पे कमीशन का पैसा कहां से आएगा? Nobody has asked. लेकिन ये किसानों का जब 70,000 रुपीज माफ किया गया था 2008-2009 में, तो ये सवाल मुझे बहुत फेस करना पड़ा उस दिन बजट के बाद कि ये पैसा कहां से आएगा. मैंने हर बार वहां कहा कि आपने कभी पे कमीशन का तो पूछा नहीं, पैसा कहां से आएगा. 70,000 करोड़ रुपए सबको तकलीफ हुआ था, किसानों को माफ कर दिया आपने, कहां से आएगा? इन द लास्ट 12 ईयर्स 2004-2005 से बजट के डॉक्यूमेंट्स में एक कैटेगरी आती है, उसका नाम है रेवेन्यू फोरगॉन. रेवेन्यू फोरगॉन मीन्स एक्चुअली द टैक्स कंसेशन यू आर गिवन टू कॉर्पोरेट्स, एंड दीज टैक्स कंसेशंस आर गिवन फॉर व्हाट? इंडस्ट्रियल प्रोडक्शन बढ़े, एक्सपोर्ट बढ़े, जॉब क्रिएशन हो, यही है ना? कुछ और भी है? इन्वेस्टमेंट ज़्यादा आएगी, ऑब्वियसली जब इन सब होगा इन्वेस्टमेंट ज़्यादा आएगी, कॉम्पिटिटिव भी आप हो जाएंगे, कोट एंड कोट. इन द लास्ट 12 ईयर्स if you put that all together, 48 lakh crore, 48 lakh crore is the tax concession given to the corporates. Now 48 lakh crore कितने होते हैं?
Sir, 4 times 4-year budget of India.
Good, that's one way of looking at it. Very right, sir. But let me look at it other way. एक हमारे इकोनॉमिस्ट हैं सुजीत भल्ला साहब, अगर आप पढ़ते भी होंगे उनको, उन्होंने एक बार लिखा कि ये जो एलपीजी की सब्सिडी है, एलपीजी सिलेंडर्स, यू नो व्हेन राहुल गांधी सेड 10 सिलेंडर्स, आपको याद होगा, सो देन ही रोड कि भाई दिस इज 48,000 करोड़ व्हिच इज गोइंग डाउन द ड्रेन एंड इट शुड बी स्टॉप्ड. एंड इन दैट आर्टिकल ही रोड कि दिस 48,000 करोड़ इफ यू आर एबल टू सेव is good enough to wipe poverty from India for 1 year. I immediately responded to him. I think he felt very embarrassed after that. I said अगर 48,000 करोड़ से एक साल की गरीबी मिटती है तो 48 लाख करोड़ से 96 साल की गरीबी मिटती है. I hope you agree with me. अगर 48,000 करोड़ से एक साल की गरीबी मिटती है, आई एम श्योर यू एग्री, 48 लाख करोड़ जो हमने 12 साल में दिया है उससे 96 ईयर्स की गरीबी मिटती है अकॉर्डिंग टू द एनालिसिस डन बाय हिम. एंड आई एम श्योर यू एग्री, इफ 96 ईयर्स में जब गरीबी मिट जाएगी, दैट मीन्स poverty goes into history. You'll agree? So shouldn't we do that? आपको वो तो बहुत तकलीफ हुई एलपीजी सिलेंडर्स में देने के लिए, पर 48 लाख करोड़ के मुझे जवाब क्या देते हैं कि साहब यू डोंट अंडरस्टैंड डेवलपमेंट, ये तो अगर रुक ये हो जाएगा तो ट्रिकल डाउन जो है वो नहीं होगा. कल आपने सुना अंबानी साहब को ही बोलते हुए, उन्होंने बोला कि वेल्थ क्रिएशन इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट बिकॉज इट विल हेल्प इन वेल्थ डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन. वाह wow, well, look at the answer. Wealth creation is very important. When the question was asked about 57 people, billionaires of India making all the money, so his answer was that wealth creation is very important for wealth distribution. I thought it should have been the other way around. If you had distributed that wealth to these masses, I'm sure we have all been at a level that we could be living comfortably or having a future, sustainable future. Am I right? But that's the kind of thing. Anyway, don't worry. Please understand these things. These are the kind of realities that are being thrown at to us, and these are also the kind of realities we need to understand. Now, wherever you go and whichever job or responsibility you take, I'm sure you will be able to understand कि ये जो बातें कही जाती हैं, जो आपको प्रोग्रामिंग की गई है, उसमें से हमें बहुत सा बार निकल के देखना पड़ता है. And I think that's what I'm expecting for a student, from a student. I remember I had the great honor and privilege of once being sitting and talking with the person that I, of course, admire, and I'm sure many of you would also be admiring, Nelson Mandela. At the end of the discussion, he told me one thing, after I finished my talk, was the tragedy of 21st century, according to him, is that we have lost our anger. And when he said when I say anger, it doesn't mean go and plant a bomb. That's not what he meant by anger. Anger is your ability to grasp and then to stand up and ask a question. Now, unfortunately, we have stopped asking questions. अब तो मंत्री जी ने कहा कि पत्रकारों को ये सवाल नहीं पूछने चाहिए. So we have those जो रह गए इक्का दुक्का, अब उनसे भी कहा जा रहा है कि आप अपना चुप हो जाइए. Classes में मुझे नहीं मालूम, you must be very lucky, but when I was a student of my class, I can still narrate, it was 30 years back. I remember I got up, my teacher was teaching me, and I got up, so he ignored me. वो मेरे साथियों ने उठा के बिठा दिया, why are you asking question? बैठ जाओ, बैठ गया. सेकेंड डे फिर मैं उठा, फिर उन्होंने मुझे इग्नोर किया, फिर हमें खींच के बिठा दिया गया. फिर तीसरे दिन फिर मैं खड़ा हुआ सवाल पूछने के लिए, तो उसने मुझे पीछे मुड़ के देखा और कहा, देखो मैं तुम्हें 3 दिन से देख रहा हूँ सवाल पूछते हुए, मैंने तुमसे कभी सवाल पूछा? मैं कहा सर नहीं. तो तुम क्यों पूछ रहे हो? जाओ अपना काम करो, तुम्हारा ट्राइमेस्टर सिस्टम है, याद करो. The point I'm trying to make is, it doesn't happen everywhere, but this is just to illustrate कि that ability to ask question, I think is very, very crucial today, and that is what we are missing. अगर हम ठीक सवाल पूछते हैं, तो मेरा ये मानना है कि ठीक जवाब भी आपको मिलते हैं. So if you don't ask a right question, you will not get the right answer. And I think for you, for the youngsters, I look up to you as the future. और future में अगर आप जहाँ जहाँ भी जाएंगे, if you were to start having that in your mind and ask the right question, I'm sure that will make a difference in the change in perception about how the business, economy, and everything works. It doesn't stop it. Please don't think that you are a kind of a roda in the progress. I think what you are trying to do is trying to ensure that you all have what is called as play a role of what is called as inclusive development. And I think that is where we are trying to achieve. But in fact, the word inclusive development itself has also lost its meaning now, with even the World Bank chief economist now saying that we should move away from inclusive growth to knowledge growth. So एक phrase का time आता है. So I think we have moved away from inclusive now to knowledge growth. But the point I'm trying to make is कि yes, किसान को भी knowledge चाहिए. Yes, किसान को भी वो facilities चाहिए. But at the same time, किसान को income भी चाहिए. We have deprived the farmers of income all these years, and I think it is now a time that the nation must get back to see that they also get the due that they deserve. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this is basic premise that I leave before you. To wherever you go, you try to figure that out. As Gandhi said, and if you have read Gandhi's Talisman, I'm not sure how many of you went to Gandhi's Samadhi. Only one or two? All right, it's very far away, I can understand. Yeah, it's very far away. So next time you go there, please do find there is a Mahatma Gandhi's Talisman there. And if you just sit there, read and spend some time there, you will imbibe what he tried to say. That every time you talk of development, that's not what he said, every time you think development is what is going to move this world forward, just think of that, be reminded of that face of the poorest of the poor that you have before your eyes, and you'll get to know, you try to think whether it will influence him or not, it will benefit or not. And that's what Mahatma Gandhi says, which is not wrong, and which of course we have ignored all these years. Now a few minutes to say how can the world's economic growth move towards a level that the inequality can be addressed. I think we have a few minutes. Okay. Yes, the world today has, in fact, in my understanding, the economic thinking has reached a dead end. Now they don't know what to do forward. And in fact, we have reached a stage that the world now is grappling in a kind of a dark room as to trying to find out कि यहाँ भी तीर मार लो, यहाँ भी मार लो, अब कुछ नहीं चलेगा. The economic growth globally is now pathetically very low, as you all know. Job creation is not taking place. In our country, with all these 48 lakh crore that we gave to the corporates, the idea was to create jobs, one of the major components. In the last 12 years, we created only 1.6 crore jobs. And 1.6 crore jobs against the requirement of 1.25 crore jobs a year. So against 1.25 crore jobs a year, we have created just 1.6 crore jobs in the last 12 years. Job creation nahi hai. When you move these people, the argument today is, this is again, look at it, कि भाई इन लोगों को शहरों से निकाल कर, गांव से निकाल कर शहरों में लाइए. This is what globally happened. So the argument again to India is, and this is what I have been saying, that Indian economists cannot think beyond what they have been taught by the World Bank or the IMF. वो वही follow करेंगे कि इनको निकालो. निकालो for what? If you move these 40 crore people into the urban areas, do we have jobs? Last year we created 1.35 lakh jobs only. 1.35 lakh jobs. 2015 is all that we created. ये 40 करोड़ लोगों को आप गांव से निकालकर शहरों में लाओगे किस लिए? CII says कि हम land acquisition हो जाए, तो in the next 5 years, they are saying by 2022, CII says कि we will create 300 million jobs. In this country, nobody has, again, सवाल नहीं पूछा किसी ने कि 300 million jobs तो आपने आज़ादी के बाद नहीं create किए, आज इस 4 साल में कैसे कर दोगे? Nobody asked that question. So that goes along. सब उसको repeat कर रहे हैं 300 million jobs. Now 300 million jobs, do you know where is the job creation? The most important job that is being created today is of the guards. आपके यूनिवर्सिटी के बाहर भी बैठे हुए हैं और आपके घरों के बाहर भी बैठे हुए हैं. This is the job creation. Number 1. Number 2 is the bellboy. वो बटन दबाता है, आपको ऊपर ले जाता है, नीचे ले जाता है. That's the number 2 job creation in this country. And I was surprised when at the National Institute for Rural Development, I heard a professor tell us that according to his study, the biggest job creation in this country does not come from IT, comes from temples and churches. They are the biggest employer. Then I thought, yes, he's right. मेरे घर में हर जगह एक मोहल्ले में टेम्पल बनते जा रहे हैं, and every temple needs 4, 5, 6 people. Oh my God, look at the job creation in this country from temples and gurdwaras and so on. I didn't know that till then. So if this is the job creation in this country, and then on top of it, we are going to be faced with automation, you all know. We are faced with automation, even the World Bank says in India 67% jobs will be at stake. तो वो अगर ये creation हो रहा है, इस problem में जा रहे हैं, why do we want to move these people out from whether it is not an economical profession, to move them out and then make dihadi mazdoor, I don't think it's job creation. ये कहाँ आएंगे? इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में आएंगे. अगर आपने नितिन गडकरी को सुना तो कहते हैं सड़कें बन रही हैं तो जॉब क्रिएशन हो रही है. इज दैट जॉब क्रिएशन? इज दैट जॉब क्रिएशन? आपने 2 महीने के लिए ले आए, 3 महीने के लिए ले आए. You are depriving. Let me finish. You are pushing them out of a profession where you could have gainfully employed them, quote unquote. Please gainfully employ them rather than moving out of the areas. और इसका हो क्या रहा है? According to a UN study, in the year 2050, 70% of India will be living in the urban areas. Already 30% is living in the urban areas. 70% will be living in the urban areas. Very fine, and this is what is called economic growth. जितना जल्दी लोग इकट्ठे पैक हो जाएं वो ठीक है, fine. These urban cities, urban areas in India in the year 2050 will occupy 2% land of the country. 2% लैंड में आप 70% पॉपुलेशन को पैक कर दोगे और सारा 98% आपने खाली छोड़ दिया. व्हाट काइंड ऑफ डेवलपमेंट इज दिस? I don't know why people are not standing up and asking the right question. Just because some economist there has said it and you are very overawed by his Nobel Prize, I don't think this is going to be helpful for India. 2% लैंड में आप सारे लोग पैक कर दोगे. आप कभी बॉम्बे गए? बॉम्बे में 60% population is in the slums. Okay, you all know that. And how much is the area that the slums occupy? 8% of Bombay. 60% population is packed in 8% of the Bombay. It tells you clearly you are creating ghettos. Now, is that the model of development that we perceive? I think the point I'm trying to make before you, young students, is that come on, let's rise and see as to where we are heading towards. आपका एक सवाल पूछा गया बहुत दूर तक जाएगा, is what I'm trying to say. So each one of us has a responsibility. Don't be overawed by personalities कि आपके पास नोबेल प्राइज विनर आए हैं बोलने के लिए. वो सारे उतने ही, मैंने बहुत जगह देखा, बिकॉज एज जर्नलिस्ट वन हैज एन एडवांटेज आपको 1-to-1 देखने का. वो मेरे जितने ही पानी में है, डोंट वरी अबाउट दैट. बट आई थिंक यू शुड हैव दैट करेज टू स्टैंड अप एंड आस्क ए क्वेश्चन दैट कैन ओनली कम अप इफ योर कन्विक्शन इज क्लियर. सो वेयर इज द डेवलपमेंट मॉडल? कौन सा विकास होना चाहिए? एंड लेट्स वाइंड अप विद दैट. मेरा ये सोचना है, आई एम शेयरिंग विद यू, कि कंट्री का या दुनिया का विकास का मॉडल एक ही है, विच आई थिंक प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने बिल्कुल ठीक कहा, सबका साथ सबका विकास. बट आई थिंक व्हाट वी आर ट्राइंग टू नॉट नो और ट्राइंग टू इग्नोर इज कि वेल्थ क्रिएशन से वेल्थ डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन इज नॉट सबका साथ सबका विकास. द आंसर फॉर इज यू मेक एवरीवन, जिनका भी जिसकी हम सबका साथ सबका हाथ सबके हाथ की बात करते हैं, उन सबको उतना इकोनॉमिकली वायबल बनाइए, बिल्ड अप कैपेसिटी और व्हाटएवर यू कॉल इट. Now that is important. जब ये सब हो जाएंगे, अब कोई चारा नहीं है. Let me tell you, whether you accept it or not, the world today is now rising against globalization. The entry of Trump on the scene is one classic example. Brexit is another example. And now this will go on multiplying because people have been fed up. They are fed up of this kind of a model of growth. क्योंकि हमने उसको डिज़ाइन ही ऐसा किया था कि वो चंद लोगों को बेनिफिट करता है. WTO was a classic example. I remember एक WTO जब जिस दिन आया था, वर्ल्ड ट्रेड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन 1995 जनवरी 1, इंडियन एक्सप्रेस के फ्रंट पेज पे एक पॉकेट कार्टून था. उसमें 2 आदमी जा रहे थे और पीछे हाई राइज बिल्डिंग्स थी. तो उसके ऊपर बैनर्स लगे थे, कोका कोला, पेप्सी कोला, मॉन्सेंटो. तो एक आदमी पूछता है, व्हाट डज WTO मीन? दूसरा जवाब देता है, वी टेक ओवर. एंड आई रियलाइज, माय गॉड, उस कार्टूनिस्ट ने उतने छोटे कार्टून में वो बात कह दी जो आज दुनिया रियलाइज कर रही है. नाउ दे वांट टू गो बैक फ्रॉम WTO. सो समटाइम्स बिकॉज आवर इनएबिलिटी टू रियली स्टैंड अप, बिकॉज वी हैव बीन प्रोग्राम्ड इन ए मैनर कि आपको लगता है कि यही रास्ता आपका फॉरवर्ड है. एम आई राइट? एंड आई सेड अर्लियर कि ये जानना बहुत ज़रूरी है कि हम लोग ये क्यों इस एक सोच को चलते हैं एग्रीकल्चर में. इज़ बिकॉज जब मैं स्टूडेंट था एग्रीकल्चर का, तो मैंने देखा कि एवरी टाइम माई टीचर्स वुड से, इफ यू हैव टू इम्प्रूव योर एग्रीकल्चर विच इज़ बैकवर्ड, सब स्टैंडर्ड, इनएफिशिएंट, you have to follow what is happening in America or Europe. And I used to question, but my questions were lost. द क्वेश्चन दैट आई हैव स्टिल पोज इज कि ऐसा क्यों है कि हमारे प्रॉब्लम है और सोल्यूशन हमें वहां मिलते हैं। आप देख लीजिए, आपके भी जहां जहां आप जिस एरिया में हैं, सोल्यूशन सब वेस्ट में लाई करते हैं, वेदर वी लाइक इट और नॉट, चाहे इरिगेशन का ड्रिप इरिगेशन हो या एग्रीकल्चर का हो। वो इसलिए है क्योंकि जो मेरा करिकुलम था, जब यूनिवर्सिटीज़ बनी इंडिया में एग्रीकल्चर की, तो वो जो करिकुलम था, यूनिवर्सिटीज़ वर सेट अप बाय यूएस एड, लेकिन जो करिकुलम है वो भी वहीं से आया। अगर आपने करिकुलम देखा हो